Good morning and welcome everyone. Hope you guys are doing fine. I'm Jatin Verma. Welcome to Jvs IAS YouTube channel. So in today's editorial analysis, I'm going to analyze an important editorial that has appeared in the Indian Express newspaper. The title is Preparing for Medical and Financial Emergencies. हम आम तौर पे ये देखते हैं कि हमारी कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन में जनरली वी कम अक्रॉस द टर्म्स लाइक national emergency or financial emergency, but the need of the hour seems to be medical emergency. A state of medical emergency prevails in the country, even as the government seems to be, the central government as well as the state government seem to be grappling with this crisis. तो आपको नहीं लगता कि हमारी कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन में एक टर्म मेडिकल इमरजेंसी सीम्स टू बी कॉन्स्पिकुअस बाय इट्स एब्सेंस? आज के दौर में ये एक ऐसी टर्म है जो कि खल रही है, शायद ये कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन में होनी चाहिए थी. दिल्ली के चीफ मिनिस्टर एक तरफ ये कह रहे हैं कि प्राइम मिनिस्टर को हेल्प करना चाहिए, ऑक्सीजन दूसरी स्टेट से दिल्ली में ऑक्सीजन नहीं आ रही. और दिल्ली की अगर हम खासकर बात करें तो कभी कोई आरक्षण के लिए दिल्ली का पानी काट देता है, तो कभी कोई हेल्थ इमरजेंसी अगर पूरी कंट्री में देखने को मिलती है तो दिल्ली की ऑक्सीजन काट देता है. इतनी वल्नरेबल किसी भी कंट्री की नेशनल कैपिटल नहीं होनी चाहिए, राइट? ये एक बात है. और इसी के चलते मैंने अपने टेलीग्राम चैनल Jvs IAS 10 पे I have shared one question also, that do you think that the term like medical emergency, which was not envisaged by the constitution makers of our country, should have been there in the constitution of India, right? financial emergency है और दूसरी emergencies की भी मैं बात कर चुका हूँ, जैसे judicial emergency भी हमारी कंट्री में होनी चाहिए, considering the state of affairs in judiciary, backlog of cases as well as vacancies going on हैंड इन हैंड. नाउ सेकंड ARC, ये एडिटोरियल जो इंडियन एक्सप्रेस में है ये कहता है सेकंड ARC हैड रिकमेंडेड द फॉलोइंग. सेकंड ARC क्राइसिस मैनेजमेंट वाज द नेम ऑफ द रिपोर्ट, क्राइसिस मैनेजमेंट रिपोर्ट 3, which was published by the government of India in 2006, second administrative reforms commission. Now model legislation on public health to more effectively prevent the outbreak and spread of epidemics. Second ARC said that it is imperative that a comprehensive model legislation on public health is finalized at an early date, and that the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare systematically pursues its enactment by the states. तो मॉडल लॉ बनाना चाहिए था, because health is a state subject. So since health is a state subject, to all that central government, Central Union Ministry of Health and Family Welfare could do is create a model legislation on public health. Model legislation एक skeletal framework यूनियन मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ फैमिली हेल्थ एंड फैमिली वेलफेयर तैयार करेगी, उसको अडॉप्ट करना स्टेट गवर्नमेंट्स का काम होगा, राइट? नेसेसिटेटेड बाय लोकल रिक्वायरमेंट्स, अडैप्टिंग टू द लोकल रिक्वायरमेंट्स. सेकंड, द यूनियन लेजिस्लेशन गवर्निंग पब्लिक हेल्थ इमरजेंसीज बी इंट्रोड्यूस्ड फॉर द फाइनल कंसिडरेशन इन द लाइट ऑफ फीडबैक रिसीव्ड फ्रॉम द स्टेट्स एट एन अर्ली डेट. तो ये इतनी अच्छी नोबल जो सेकंड ARC की रिकमेंडेशंस थी, उनको यूपीए सरकार ने, कांग्रेस गवर्नमेंट ने पब्लिश किया, कमेटी लगाई, सब कुछ हुआ, लेकिन जब उनको इंप्लीमेंट करने की बात आई तो कुछ ज्यादा नहीं किया गया. Third thing that second ARC said that we should do is Ministry of Health and Family Welfare has to ensure that requisite plans envisaged under Disaster Management Act 2005 are drawn up in respect to epidemics, and that the role of the district administration finds explicit mention in the Public Health Emergency Bill. So at least we should have a statutory enactment. Okay, public health emergency bill kind of an enactment should have been there. The structure created by Disaster Management Act 2005, हमारी कंट्री में हेल्थ डिजास्टर को आज तक सोचा ही नहीं गया. In the light of the fact that now the scientists and the medical community worldwide is saying that these type of epidemics is going to be, these type of crises are going to be a regular phenomena, we should think on these lines. It's high time that the recommendations of second ARC should be acted upon. We need a public health emergency bill to deal with such kind of situations, as we see that in order for us to implement this legislation or to bring about this legislation, what we need is a well oxygenated federalism. Prime Minister has been flaunting the term cooperative federalism, but it's high time that he should oxygenate the federalism, especially the capital territory of Delhi. While even as we see that just days before the second wave of cases in Delhi, the Delhi government was deoxygenated, and the power was taken out of Article 239AA, which gives the power to the Delhi government, or National Capital Territory of Delhi. Special Legislative Assembly was created. While the Delhi government has been deoxygenated, but central government has not been able to come to the rescue of Delhi during the time of crisis. Fourth thing that second ARC said was that while surveillance and management of epidemics are the responsibilities of public health professionals, surveillance and management of epidemics are the responsibilities of public health professionals. It is clear that a particularly severe outbreak could overwhelm the capacities of line organizations. So this was said way back in 2006. The thing that we are witnessing today, the crisis that we are an eyewitness to today, was envisaged way back in 2006 by Second Administrative Reforms Commission. As you all know that there's a culture of appointing committees and commissions in our country every time a crisis or every time malgovernance happens, but these reports which come up sometimes with very very good points, they are dumped in the cold storage. Ministry of Health and Family Welfare and the state governments must ensure that SOPs, standard operating procedures, are devised to assign roles and responsibilities of agencies and personnel outside the line organizations whenever the situation so warrants. So here it is clearly written that a particularly severe outbreak like COVID-19 could overwhelm the capacities of the line organizations, be it Ministry of Health and Family Welfare or be it any other line organization. That is why our Prime Minister 2 days ago had to say that apna apna dekh lo, sarkar kuch nahi karegi. That means he was talking about the community level organizations, he was talking about the social capital mobilization. राइट तो उस दिन ये बातें चल रही थी ना कि सोशल कैपिटल दैट कम्युनिटी माइक्रो ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस नीड टू बी क्रिएटेड, NGOs नीड टू बी mobilized further in order to rescue India out of this situation of second wave of cases. So here also this was clearly envisaged by second ARC. Now it's high time that we should act upon this. Fifth thing that second ARC said in its report on crisis management was state level handbooks and manuals concerning disaster management should have a chapter on epidemics related emergencies. It's high time that now also we should act on this. हमें state level handbooks or manuals बनानी चाहिए disaster management से related. And it also said that a model chapter may be circulated by Ministry of Health and Family Welfare for guidance of states. It may be useful to document the past handling of epidemics like the plague, Surat plague of British era and Japanese encephalitis of Eastern UP to facilitate the standardization of response and create a standard operating procedure learning from the past experiences. Documentation of past experiences is being talked about over here. A policy framework has to be drawn up with requisite legal and institutional mechanisms that focus on risk reduction as a major priority in disaster management. ऐसा नहीं है कि इस रिपोर्ट पे या सेकेंड ARC की इस बात पे कुछ अमल नहीं किया गया. It is not the case that these recommendations of second ARC were not acted upon at all. In fact, a public health emergency bill was created. It was drafted, but then nothing happened on that. Okay, now coming to the other aspect, the editorial says that the World Conference on Natural Disaster Reduction held at Oklahoma in 1994 set out the strategy to meet such a crisis. Since COVID-19 has spread all over the world, it is high time a global conference of this kind is held to take stock of this grave situation and work out a strategy and plan of action for a safe world. Oklahoma type of कॉन्फ्रेंस एक और होनी चाहिए, राइट. वर्ल्ड कॉन्फ्रेंस ऑन नेचुरल डिजास्टर रिडक्शन was held in 1994. Now it's right time for world conference on man-made disasters or epidemic kind of a disasters should be held all over again to take cognizance of what is happening, to take stock of how to deal with such grave situations in the coming times. Government and insurance companies should play a more proactive role in monitoring the situation in vulnerable areas to spread the insurance cover. So insurance cover, the two metrics which we use for gauging or assessing insurance coverage in India are insurance density and insurance penetration. We don't find any such strategy for such coverage of insurance in India. There should be a national and state level approach for an institutional arrangement for medical emergencies. This arrangement envisages involvement of private hospitals to a large extent. Maybe a legislation is required to enforce this. Now the government has been struggling in the first wave of COVID cases in April, May, June 2020. Government was struggling with the fact that private sectors were not cooperating in the initial phase. Then the government had to arm twist them. So here again it is said that we should have a national and state level approach for institutional arrangement for medical emergencies. UPA 1 contemplated a public health emergency bill on the basis of second ARC suggestions. Later, this was introduced as Public Health Prevention, Control and Management of Epidemics, Bioterrorism Bill in 2017. This new legislation, so Modi government had introduced this bill, but because health is a state subject, nothing much could happen on this bill, right? तो ये सारी चीजें हैं यहाँ पे. Now, unfortunately, this bill did not see the light of the day. It is unfortunate that NDA, the present dispensation, failed to understand the foresight of the then government, right? तो अभी के लिए सरकार को ये चाहिए कि ये public health prevention, control and management of not just epidemics. Today we are grappling with an epidemic called COVID-19. COVID-19 induced epidemic. Tomorrow it could be bioterrorism. When this Osama bin Laden was there, so they were talking about polluting India's water bodies with some lethal chemicals. This is the example of biochemical. Okay, bioterrorism. Bioterrorism is like polluting the air or polluting the water bodies with something lethal, something poisonous. So this is some countries have tried this on one another in the past. This could be a reality in the coming days, and India is quite vulnerable to these type of things also, this type of terrorism also, bioterrorism, because of Indus Water Treaty and other things that we know about, and our dependency of Brahmaputra River, our dependency on China because of Brahmaputra River. This could be a reality in the times to come. So it's high time that we should have these type of legislations in place. There are 4 pillars. Then the editorial moves on to talk about the 4 pillars: policy level pillar, institutional framework, technical matrix and financial regime. Now point number 1, when we talk about policy level, we are basically talking about national health policy. As far as I know, having read the entire document of National Health Policy 2017, there is nothing about the crisis, epidemics in our national health policy. All that it talks about is setting up of 150,000 health and wellness centers, adoption of promotive and preventive healthcare, yoga, emphasis on Ayush. All goody things have been talked about. But when it comes to envisaging or foreseeing something like epidemic that we are witnessing today, nothing is there in that. Nothing of the nature of biometric or bioterrorism is there in the policy. So we need to incorporate, we need to revise our policy of 2017 in the light of the wisdom gained through 2019 COVID, right? Institutional framework. Do we have a pyramid of hospitals? Do we have a policy wherein the government could immediately rope in private hospitals? Do we have enough oxygen plants? Now today we are talking about oxygen manufacturing capacities of India, right? Even as we don't have the time to breathe in the light of this crisis. Tomorrow it could be active pharmaceutical ingredients. We are heavily dependent on China for active pharmaceutical ingredients. Okay, so that is the point here. Now okay, so these things are there. Now they should ideally, these should when we are talking about institutional framework, so this is the meaning of institutional framework, that pyramidal level, this public health centers, and then your secondary health centers, or you can call as PGIs, etc. Then we should have aims like institutions at the apex of our health sector pyramid. Okay, now as we know that health care is being privatized increasingly in the form of private hospitals, which are near equal to the best of the hotels in our country. Hospitals are very expensive in that sense. And when it comes to technical matrix, okay, technical matrix basically means that if one thing is stitching into another, if one good thing, that is India's pharma capacity, is equating, how is it India's good pharmaceuticals capacity, how well is it gelling up with India's doctor population ratio? Or else to say, if we have got good hospitals, if we have good number of beds in the hospitals, do we really have enough oxygen to feed to the patients on those beds? This is the technical matrix angle. I hope you got my point. So one thing, how well is the one thing liaising with the other thing, right? Then comes the financial regime. Is the healthcare affordable? How much is the out of pocket expenditure? So these are the four crucial pillars of health policy that Indian policymakers should keep in mind while coming up with the response. Okay, now one is the larger grandeur policy, that is National Health and Crisis Management Policy. It could be named as such. Then there is another, there has to be micro policies to feed into the grand policy. National Oxygen Plan, for example, National Pharmaceutical Plan. These type of plans have to feed into national health policy. A country of 130 crore cannot afford this kind of crude lockdown, especially when the economy was already receding into a recession with each passing day of present dispensation's tenure, especially when the unemployment is at an all-time high. We can ill afford something that is, we can ill afford something of the nature of this crude lockdown. Crude lockdown basically means without any kind of planning. When in Germany, in the light of COVID-19, this lockdown was enforced, people were given 2 days of breather period. They can buy, they can restock their groceries, all those things were done. Okay, now the government of India and the state governments should have a pragmatic approach of governance to meet such a serious crisis. So what we need, what we have learned in the last few days is, we need a well-financed, a well-oxygenated federalism. You can jot down this term. The need of the hour is an oxygenated federalism. Even as the Prime Minister is busy doing yoga and filling up enough oxygen in his lungs, the federalism of India needs to be well oxygenated, especially the National Capital Territory of Delhi. Okay, so we need to have these type of some words or catchy phraseology, at least for our essay paper. So this was there in this editorial analysis. In a short span of half an hour, I'll be coming up with the news analysis for the day. There wasn't much in the newspaper today except for the COVID related mishappenings that I came across in the morning. So what we'll be doing is, we'll be analyzing the most important news articles from the newspaper of the day, The Hindu, in the next half an hour. Stay tuned. Bye bye guys. Thank you.